Welcome to the June 20th, 2012 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Peggy Vignocchi, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to please introduce themselves.
Monica Ruggles.
Steuart Trey.
Charlie King.
John Clair.
And would members of staff please introduce themselves.
Megan O'Neill.
And Kathy Zerniak will be
She'll
joining us
return
momentarily.
shortly.
Thank you. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscaped streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not fully be resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business on our agenda would typically be for approval of the meeting minutes of our May 2nd meeting. Those are unavailable as of yet, so we will table that item. Moving on to item number 3 is an item on the consent agenda. A consideration of a request for approval of construction of a new single-family dwelling on a vacant lot located at the corner of Woodlawn Avenue and Washington Road. The owners and representatives are Bryant and Liza Jessen. Is there anyone from the board or public who wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda? Please step forward.
Good evening, Ms. Vignocchi and members of the board and Ms. Zerniak, members of staff. Michael Rashowski of 648 Waveland Road. And I delivered a letter to the city, so I just would like to read this if I can. Regarding 131 Washington Road, this letter is to advise that the Michael Rashowski Company objects to the approval of the request to the Building Review Board by Mr. and Mrs. Bryant Jessen for the construction of a single-family residence at 131 Washington Road, Lake Forest. This company previously submitted a substantially similar design for the same property for approval at July 9, 2007 board meeting. We now object based on the fact that the design now proposed is in violation of the copyright of the Michael Rashowski Company. We would ask that the request by Mr. and Mrs. Jessen for the approval of the single-family residence be removed from the consent agenda of the Building Review Board meeting so that representation of Michael Rashowski Company can state a formal objection. It is our intent to pursue appropriate action, legal if need be, to protect our intellectual property as related to the copyrighted design, and suggest that the City of Lake Forest take the appropriate action regarding the requested approval. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any request for removing this from the consent agenda? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rashowski. Seeing as the items you stated are not under the purview of this board, I believe that that this item shall remain on the consent agenda, and we shall move forward, and we would still allow any other public comment to be heard at this time regarding this item. Hearing none, we will take this item to a vote. Do I hear a motion regarding this item?
I just have we have a question
If we're
period?
going to have any comments, then
Then it needs to
amongst
go
our
off
board,
the
then we will.
consent agenda?
Exactly.
Understood.
And as a board member, we may, you may take it off the consent agenda also. Okay.
So what you're looking for is a motion to vote on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll try it.
Please.
I will make a motion that we approve the new plans for 131 Washington Road as submitted to us in our packet, with all of the various ramifications that the staff has suggested in our book. There are 1 through, I believe, 1 through 11. I do that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So, 1 nay being from Ms. Ruggles. Thank you. The motion is approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a continued petition. It's a consideration of a request for approval of demolition of 2 existing single-family residences located at 739 and 743 Illinois Road, and approval of a replacement residence on the combined properties. This item was previously considered by the board and is now presented with a new plan for the replacement residence, prepared by a new architect. The owners are Ben Kuzniar and Joan Budolovsky. Representative is Chris Roberts, architect. Good evening. Could you, that would be quite fine, but please use the microphone, and you can pull it out of the stand, I believe. And, yeah, you can pull it straight out, if it would be easier to hold it. Yes, thank you. And please introduce yourself.
My name is Chris.
Should be on. Try again.
Hello. Is it working?
I think so.
I can just talk louder.
It's broadcast on TV, so they really need the microphones being used. One moment, please. Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Chris Roberts.
Good
I'm with
evening.
Warren Pickell Builders. I'm here representing the Kuzniars and Budalovskis for the property at 739 Illinois Street. I'm just going to scroll through some images that we've created. This being one, the location map. We are, I guess that would be East Lake Forest, east of the railroad tracks, west of Sheridan Road. These two photos are from East Illinois Street. The top one is viewed from, that's almost straight on, looking at the northern house. There are two homes that will be demolished and removed. The southern photo is a perspective standing from the middle of Illinois Street looking northwest towards the property. This is a view from the property looking across the street. One unique item of this lot is that there is no neighbor across the street, but that is the athletic field of the college. Again, just two close-ups of the house on the left is the neighbor to the south, the house on the right, neighbor to the north. We prepared this exhibit to illustrate those same two homes. The house on the south is a flag lot, which is unique in that the house is set very far back from the street. It is a front-load garage. The house on the right is a side-load garage set back far from the street. Our home, obviously in the middle, shows the two existing homes on the lot, as well as our setbacks and our rear yard. Plat of survey showing the existing two homes. The Kuzniars and Budalovskis came to us, the prior applicant or petitioner, the architect that was here before, his design is presented above. Our new design that we've come up with the Kuzniars is below. We're proposing, or illustrating this, in that the previous design, as far as lot coverage goes, was about 2,800 square feet. Our new site plan is about 2,700 square feet. There was an intentional effort to minimize the lot coverage on this. But this diagram also shows the proximity of the two schemes to the street, as well as, again, the rear yard setback. This is the actual site plan of the proposed home. One of the things when we started looking at the design of this home again was precedence. The style of home that the homeowners were looking for is a French country home with taller roof peaks, a real cement stucco exterior. One of the other things that typifies, a historic French country would be small trim details at the eaves. These are two homes that we had completed, our company had completed in Lake Geneva, and the homeowners felt that that design was something that they really appreciated and really liked to see. So we use that as our first precedent. This was another home, one of the Adler estates in Lake Forest. I illustrate this just as a front-load garage, similar to the design that we proposed. Within the close proximity of the lot, within the neighborhood, there are other examples of homes in the neighborhood that are of a similar French country style. This is one, and another. So we took the precedents and applied it to our design. One of the most important things to the Kuzniars and Budalovskis was that they will have 3 generations of family living with them. In siting this house, the location of the garage, if we moved it to the south end of the lot because we didn't have as challenging of a grade as we do on the north end of the lot. This allows them to have the wheelchair access that they need. Again, the style of the precedents that we looked at, you can see in the design, the stucco, the stained wood garage doors, historic garage doors, the color of the trim, the dark trim, the light field, and the minimal trim. And I say minimal just because we feel that was a historic precedent to match. The rear elevation, we took the same elements. Just to go back one as well, one of the other key elements we tried to do was trying to minimize the bulk of the home from the street and the impact it has on the neighbors and its surroundings. On the back of the house, carried the same design elements around. The back of the house is definitely more a two-story mass, but we tried to break that down with two symmetrical gables, a metal roof covering a porch, and what can't really be read on this is the underneath the gable to the right is a dining room that pops out 15 feet. So there's a play on elements and the roof lines to help break up the massing. The north elevation, same elements again, but in order to break up the roof massing, we added a dormer on the second floor for bedrooms and bathrooms, as well as a bump out on the first floor for the corner bay window for the first floor den, as well as the mother-in-law suite with full accessibility is that bump out on the lower level. At the south end, we're proposing a third bay to the garage. That garage door is more of a shed for bikes and hobbies. It's not intention, the intention is not to drive a car back there. The window within the roof, that is drawn back inside the roof there to offer some privacy for the master bath. I think this might help explain a little greater the massing of the building. To present to the board and people present, from our view looking northwest, this is standing on the parkway at our neighbor to the south, looking at the landscaping that we're proposing to screen the garage and the building as well. We look at the landscape as an integration of the landscape in the architecture to make it look like the landscape has been there. This is a view looking southwest, again from the parkway at the north neighbor. This is what do you call this? A streetscape, neighbor to the south, neighbor to the north. You know, the bulk of the house was not, we kept the bulk and the roof line low to match the neighbor and be in context. The landscape plan, it's not showing up that clear on the screen, I apologize, but along the driveway, we are proposing, if I could flip to the next couple of screens here, a dense hedge of Norway spruce and spruce Baccaria, not exactly sure of the pronunciation. We're proposing, again, it's hard to tell, but there are two larger trees, the shagbark maple on the left, or shagbark hickory on the left, and one of the other screening elements that we are using is the panicle hydrangea on the right. Panicle hydrangea on the right is basically that low shrubbery that you see. The spruce are the ones to the right, and then the shagbark hickory is the larger tree, kind of just to the left of the clumps there. At the center of the front elevation, we're proposing a redbud tree, as the one on the left. And then for more screening on the north, the viburnum Korean spice on the right. Again, more of the spruce screening material. This is the floor plan. The floor plan, again, part of the effort in designing this floor plan was to maximize the front yard and maximize the rear yard. You know, with 3 generations and their families important to them, the quantity of both is important to them, the livability of both. The landscape addresses that as well, in creating pockets of little outdoor rooms in the yard. So in approaching the design, the effort was to make the building depth as narrow as possible, address the wheelchair accessibility, and in general, just the livability of the floor plan was important as the livability of the exterior and the landscape. Second floor was minimized keep the massing of the street low. We are proposing some metal roofs for accents. Section through the building. Again, showing the front elevation is to the left of that image, the rear is to the right. Again, illustrating the attempt to keep the massing on the streetscape low. This is a diagram showing in dashed form are the two existing homes on the lot and our proposed structure behind them, superimposed behind them. I brought forth some samples. This is one of the actual color and texture of the roof we're proposing, a 40-year asphalt architectural shingle. A stone like this that picks up the colors of the asphalt, and a field that, I know a small rendering.
Chris, please use the microphone when you're
Sorry.
speaking. Thank you.
I apologize. I'll start over. The shingles there are an architectural 40-year architectural grade asphalt shingle. The stone on the left is one that integrates the color of the roof and the stucco and the trim. And the garage doors will be of stain, as will the mudroom door and the front door. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. At this time, we will take it to staff for their comment regarding this petition.
Thank you, Chairman. This petition was continued from your January meeting, and since that time, over the past month or so, the owners have been working with a new architect on a new replacement structure. So while there was significant discussion on the previously designed project, this is essentially a new project before you for the replacement structure. I would like to remind the board that you are asked to consider both the demolition of the two structures as well as the design of the replacement structure. At the last meeting, there was some testimony about the architectural significance of or the historical significance of the two cottages that are on the street today, and the board indicated general support for the demolition with the condition that archival photographs be taken of the structures and kept in the city for historical merit. The staff report that you have does recommend approval. We have identified some key issues in the staff report and are asking the board for input and direction on those issues. I'll summarize some of them in my comments. The first would be the consistency with an architectural style. We're asking the board for direction and input if all of the elements on all of the elevations are consistent with the chosen architectural style. The current design does propose a street-facing garage. Your design guidelines do discourage street-facing garages. However, in this case, given the angle of the house, the configuration of the lot, the curve of the street, there may be enough reason to consider a street-facing garage. Additionally, the property across the street is part of Lake Forest College. It's an open use for the athletic fields, so there's not a direct impact across the street with residential properties. The material choices that are noted in your packet, the petitioner has provided samples here this evening. One item that's identified in the staff report is the proposed roofing material. The way that the home is designed, it purposefully has a low eave in the front, which helps to reduce the appearance of height and the massing from the street, but it also exposes a large expanse of asphalt shingles. Again, the design guidelines do encourage the use of natural materials, so your input and direction on that is requested. I think with clear direction from the board on specific items, we do have a list of conditions of approval for this evening, and I welcome your comments and discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. This time, we will take it to the board for any questions or requests for clarification to the petitioner or to staff. Monica?
Okay, I'll just kind of go through each sheet that I have. My first question is for staff. The lot, that's the front lot to that flag lot. I'm assuming that's an empty lot, but is that that's a buildable lot, is that correct?
There was a home on that lot. When the home was taken down, it was consolidated with the lot behind. So there is only one zoning lot there at this
There's
time.
only one lot, even though on the diagram it shows that it's a lot. There's
Correct.
no
They would
lot
have to
there.
go through a process to establish a new lot there.
Okay. And for the architect, I noticed you did a number of garage diagrams, showing, one detached garage, and then a couple of schemes with, the attached, and then one with the detached. Did you try any schemes that had, like, one bay that was an attached garage for the person that would need the wheelchair accessibility, and then the other two bays being a detached garage?
We had looked at other options, but one of the most important directives was to preserve the quantity of front yard and rear yard space, as well as minimize the amount of impervious surface, asphalt quantity. A lot of, the approach on this design was as a front-load garage. We would minimize the amount of impervious and maximize the amount of landscape, and the homeowners appreciated the look of this elevation, as well as are committed to using the carriage doors, so.
Knowing that, front-loaded garage doors are discouraged in the architectural guidelines?
Discouraged, but not prohibited, so we're trying to present our best design that made the client, at the end of a design process, you are definitely trying to make the client happy and trying to meet the regulations and contextuality of the neighborhood.
Okay.
We feel like we're addressing both.
Okay. For the third bay, the one that you said was for bike storage and such, I did notice that on your site plan that there's, a different kind of driveway access to it. You have some stone and probably a grass
Right.
type of apron to get there. If somebody were to park a car there, is there enough room to actually back a car out? I mean, I know that for this owner, they, going to use it for bike storage, but what about somebody else in the future?
I would say if you pulled into that rear, to access that rear, it's called garage door, you'd have to back out. You'd have to pull in, and then you'd have to back out until you get to the turnaround. And yeah, it wasn't set up to be a functional side-load garage.
Okay.
It was more for, the homeowners have their hobbies, and that portion of the garage is for that. The size of the opening, I think, just speaks to, there's other uses to having that much open space available by opening the garage door
Okay.
versus a window.
Okay. On the east elevation, the dormer the center dormer, is the face of that dormer in alignment with the first floor wall?
No, I can show you that on the best place to start is the second floor. I don't have an exact number, but I would say that that dormer is back. From the face of the garage, I would say it's back 6 to 7 feet.
Okay. On the front porch, I see that it's a metal roof, and then on, let's see, your 3D drawing, it looks like the metal roof wraps around to, is it the south side? Yeah, so that south portion of the metal roof, is that just part of the flare of the main
Yes.
roof gable?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it doesn't really overhang much more than,
It's got the metal roof has a 1-foot overhang on the north side of the porch, the east side of the porch, and the south side of the porch. Where the roof flares at a pitch that we can't use asphalt shingles on, so that first, let's say 3 feet of rise on the porch roof has to be metal, but then it transitions into the asphalt shingles beyond that.
so it's really not a wraparound porch, it's just the portion of the roof on the south is a metal roof, and then,
Right,
Okay.
yeah, I see what you're looking, no, that a portion of that metal roof covers the, I think we call it the music room.
Okay. And then the column spacing on that front porch, I mean, I see what you're trying to do. You have, you know, columns centered around the front door, and then there's just sort of a interesting spacing of the columns there. But, okay.
The homeowners requested that if we had simply 3 columns there and we put a column right in the middle of that porch, that just the usability of the music room, they just felt with their furniture and the way that window is centered in the room, that was the most, that's where they wanted the window. And they have a little round feature window characteristic of that style of house. That set up to me the column spacing. So I took, what determined the column spacing was the inside of the room. Sometimes it's the other way around like you suggest, which I agree with as well. But in this particular case, we centered the 2 columns, the front door on the 2 columns to the right, and then between a combination of the window and the round window. That's also going to be used as a seating area for a swinging, or a porch swing, thank you. So that certain portion of the porch, also it's advantageous for the homeowner to have a wider space in between columns because they got a greater view to their front yard from where they're going to sit. Now, those are windows from the music room. There's one door off there. The windows to the left have a panel below them, but they're not doors there.
On the west elevation, which is the rear elevation, the first floor bump out, I'm just looking for a clarification on, there's one portion that looks like it has the transom windows.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna go to the plan.
Yeah, so on the bump out, the right side has transom windows on it, so that eave line is higher than the porch area.
Right.
But then when I look on the south elevation, that bump out, it looks like the eave lines are aligning and there's no transom windows.
Again, on the rear porch, there's a 1-foot overhang on it. It's one continuous roof from the wall, exterior wall, down to the overhang at the porch columns. To be consistent underneath one roof, that dining room has a higher plate and it has the transoms on the west elevation, but that overhang is almost nothing. I think it's a 1-inch or 2-inch overhang. So that at the shallow roof pitch of that rear porch, the distance between where that eave is and where that dining room starts and the rise of the roof, we can re-engage the dining room eave there, and it can be all continuous. It's subtle, it's small. But it's
Okay.
intentional.
Okay. So then, my question, normally, the interior spaces are not, something that I typically feel is under our review. We're looking at the exterior and the massing and the proportion and the style and such. But since you mentioned that the reason for the attached garage was accessibility for a wheelchair, if I look at the first floor plan, is bedroom number 4 to be the accessible bedroom for the wheelchair? And then you're not showing ramps, but are you proposing ramps to get up into the first floor?
Well, per code, we need 1 6-inch riser from the garage into the mudroom, let's call it. So the door from the mudroom into the garage does have a 6-inch step to meet code, but the door from the other door that goes from that call it the service porch, within the landscape, we're trying to bring the landscape and the terraces and whatnot up so that's flush, and we just have maybe a 2-inch threshold at that door. And 2 inches, normally it'd be flush, but I think just for durability and constructability, it should have at least a 2-inch threshold there. And the Kuznars did not object to having even a 6-inch step to get the wheelchair up and over. So yes, that's the accessible route.
So when a person in a wheelchair is actually in the garage, they still have to go up the 6-inch step to get into the house?
I think the Cuisinarts have to assist, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that,
So that really, other than being sheltered with a detached garage, it's not much different, like if you'd have a detached garage in the back and you'd have to come in through a ramp or something into the house.
I think the importance of that attached garage is the width of it allows for 2 cars to be parked in there and take the wheelchair out and be within cover, transporting, I think, their mother from the car into that house. Yeah.
Okay, so it is for, to protect that person and keep them sheltered?
Yes.
Okay. And I think, I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time. My final question is, if I go to the streetscape, am I correct in assuming that the overall length of the proposed home is wider than both flanking residents?
I don't have an exact width of it would appear that it's wider than the neighbor to the north. I would say I'm guessing it's probably slightly wider than the neighbor to the south as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the architect. Did, based on staff's recommendations on the roofing material, did you consider wood shingle at their suggestion, I'm sure?
I think it's an excellent suggestion. It's a beautiful material. I think the durability of the asphalt shingles and the cost of the asphalt shingles is more appealing to the homeowner. Sorry. We also have selected the high-end architectural
I
shingle.
think the point of staff, I don't mean to speak for staff, but given the design of the unit, there is so much roof exposed, it's such both in the front, the front view and, because of the long, the French country style. So your thinking is the 40-year asphalt shingle and cost are your main reasons?
I would have to respect as an architect, I think slate or wood shingles are an attractive alternative, but I think that a 40-year asphalt shingle for its price is the most advantageous solution. I mean, it's a nice shingle. I mean, it looks, the color that we're selecting.
I understand, I understand, and I know what architectural shingles, I know what they're doing. Okay, I was just trying to get, if you had thought of this,
We have.
So this isn't just dropped on you right now?
No, we have, we presented the homeowners the cost of what it would be to upgrade from asphalt to a wood shingle roof. And I can't say to where they are in their decision about that, but I would recommend that they go with the asphalt shingle just for durability. Of key importance to them is obviously the reliability and low maintenance of the exterior. That's why we're trying to do a cement stucco. That's why we will be doing a cement stucco exterior. It's not an ephes for the durability of that. Everything has been designed, the metal roof, the copper roof. I think all of that has been considered carefully by them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of the metal roof, what color is that going to be? Is it a copper or what?
Did we choose a color for that? We were talking about copper. We're also talking about a metal roof with a paint to match an aged copper, like a pack clad or a barrage. It would be a metal roof, but there'd be a color like an aged copper color.
Aged copper. Okay. And is that typical, the metal roof of this French country architectural style? I haven't seen it. I don't know if there's any precedent photos or not to have that metal roof element.
I would. Let's Is there any way to zoom into that by any chance? The picture on the right, well, it's not gonna be much good if you can't see it, but there's the gable with the two garage doors on it, then the second gable in the back. There's a roof over the entry there that's like a fish scale copper shingle. So I think that image was very attractive to the homeowners. So that was some of the precedent we used to move forward with it. Generally, an architect or a builder is forced to use on low-pitched roofs, anything underneath 412 roof pitch. You can't do an asphalt or a slate or a shingle roof. You'd have to go to a metal roof, so I think it's consistent with many architectural styles.
And then the site layout, understanding the petitioner's desire to keep as big a backyard as possible, is there any reason that this house can't be moved back into the rear yard, 10 feet, 20 feet? I mean,
I think it's livability. One of the things missing in this diagram is that dashed line that looks like it represents the front lot line. It doesn't show the sidewalk and the parkway. So really the setback of our house, I mean, it's not as much as the flag lot, but that's an anomaly. The house on the right, you know, I think per the homeowners, I think the house is sited exactly where they want it to be, given the size of the backyard. I think right now the back, do you know what our rear yard setback is? Our setback's 40 feet, but I was trying to give you an exact number for the distance from the rear yard to the back of the house. I'd have to walk over and see it.
It appears the vast majority is about 70 feet from the backyard, with the exception of that one room that pokes out, from what I can see here.
I can't read it off the screen.
Yeah.
I can't read it off the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's 35, that is about equal to that, but it's just a element that's poking out.
yeah, 60, 70 feet. in
60
that-
feet, yeah,
Okay.
65.
65
60
to the
it's
corner of the
65
building, and then
feet.
another 13 or so to the majority of the house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. The only place that the stone veneer is on the chimney on the front, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
It's an accent at the base of the
The rest
chimney.
of it is stucco.
It's all stucco, and
Yeah.
there's a trim detail, or a stucco detail, I should say, that's kind of a water table around
Uh-huh.
the house, but that is a stucco detail.
Okay.
There's wood shutters, the window heads are timber. I'm trying to think of anything else. The porch columns and beams are all wood.
And to
Same
what
with the no-
elevation does that stone element rise?
I apologize, huh?
That's okay.
That's the front, the east elevation, the front elevation?
To what height?
To
Oh,
what
Did
elevation
you
does
ask how
this?
high it rises? I'm sorry.
Yes, to what
I'm sorry.
elevation does the stone element rise?
9, 10, 11, 12, 13 feet.
Chris, I think you stopped before you introduced the color of the stucco when you were presenting the materials. Did you have a color in mind for that you want to show us?
I have it on this.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
all
right
right.
to
Just,
approach them?
if you could point to it, we could see it from here if you don't want to point to what you've got.
Generally a grayish green for the trim, then in the same family at the opposite end, the lighter stucco field.
Okay. Would you call that an off-white of some sort? Is it,
Solid porcelain.
well, what would you call it? Not the marketing department of Benjamin Moore.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I would say it's a
In a sunny,
greenish.
okay, it's got a slight, okay. And then on this, I'm looking at this diagram of the neighbor's house in context with the proposed house. Now, you got this 40-foot front yard setback, and then if you go to the, reverse a little bit into the property line to the curb, would you suggest that's another 20 feet? I don't see it dimensioned here, but it appears that way.
Oh,
Because the property line ends to the other side of the sidewalk. And we've got the sidewalk and then the parkway for the trees and the driveway apron.
I don't have, what's the distance?
You have a sense of that?
I'd say it's probably another, I would say it's, I mean, if the sidewalk is probably 4 feet, 5 feet, 16, 20 feet. I'm understanding, the dash line that I've got illustrated on this represents the inside face of the sidewalk.
It actually looks, if I'm looking at the side of your garage along that, I'm gonna call it east, but I don't know what side that is. The side of your garage is dimensioned at 19 feet 4 inches. And it appears that that's about the same, or at least the same dimension as that setback. So I think maybe I'll answer my own question. I'm gonna suggest that that's an additional 20 feet to your 40-foot setback. And then I'm looking at your building, at least in the one lot to the left-hand side. That looks like it's again another 30 feet to the corner. It narrows up as you get further to the right-hand side of the property to something closer to 10. But I think, is it safe to say that we are close to anywhere from 70 to 85 feet from the front at any point along there?
From the face of the garage?
From the building at all to the street, to the curb of the street?
I would say that's a close, I would say that's a, yeah, that's a,
And then you're also, it looks like you're about 70 to 80 feet along the back of the property as well.
right.
So you're smack dab in the middle of where the property ends in the back and where the curb begins at the street.
Correct.
And then I had a question regarding this element that shows up on your perspective drawing. And I think it might be the first one. You come, go back. One more. Go back, right there. The window for the master tub
Yes.
carved out of the gable form that completes itself over there. There's a narrow section to the back. Obviously, you did that to preserve that elevation on the rear.
That's,
A little bit to the detriment of the elevation on the side. I wonder if there's any other consideration you might have had for that element, bringing light into the master bath without something that, it appears awkward, you know. And then I'm gonna also point to, I'll let you ponder that a minute, and I'll point to the column that, the colonnade that Board Member Ruggles brought up. You've got the additional
Oh.
column shown there, so.
yes, I apologize.
No, that's all right. I'm assuming it was wanting to be there, and then the decision to pull it out was based on it impeding the view from the music room. And I'd just like to get, again, I'll ask you your thoughts on that. I designed thinking that people aren't as static as somebody just standing square in front of a window and looking out. They're moving around, their heads are tilting, they're talking, do you feel that it's a better elevation to have the column, or do you think that there's enough romantic elements occurring in the design that something that isn't pure in its design is acceptable? So I guess I gave you two questions.
You know, I considered the column spacing, you know, I think the fact, as I understand and gotten to know the homeowners, the importance of the livability of that porch for them. You know, I at once, as proof by my mistake in this drawing, had 4 columns there for the same purposes that you're viewing. But I guess I'd say I concurred with the homeowner that if I was sitting out in that porch, that the most important thing to me was, I guess, a wider space in between those 2 columns. And, you know, I preserve the symmetry. The other 2 columns are about the front door. But I've really come to know and appreciate the Kuzniars and Budalevskis, that this is the best solution for them. Especially, you know, the porch swing is very important to them. And I think if I was to put another column in there, I would have probably 6 feet between each column, and I don't think that, architecturally it might look good, but I think that I had to give up that aspect of it for the sake of the homeowner and the livability, and achieve this solution.
Okay, that answers that question. What about the little notch for the master tub?
Yeah,
Anything else you can do there?
well, you know, I think the one thing that, at this stage where we're at, you know, in the schematic phase, everything has been, you know, there are sections drawn. I mean, it's drawn this way. Let me go into a little bit of an explanation. It's drawn this way to be appealing as an artistic elevation, but there are real dimensions, plate heights, square footages behind all of this presentation. One of the things that we need to ascertain in the computer is whether or not we have extra square footage. Ben and Joan have asked us if that can be a dormer. I think rather than be an innie, if it was an outie, that's just a dependent on the square footage. Right now, we're close to our square footage limit. If we can gain another 50 square feet by getting exact numbers on the computer, I think our first choice would be to move that dormer out slightly and eliminate that. One of the other things I was considering was maybe that sliver of roof to the left and that little sliver of wall, which I see your point, maybe that can just go away.
I think it can just go away. And I think that actually impedes the view to some of the rear yard opportunities that you have there. In other words, you're looking through a tunnel
Yeah,
as opposed to splaying that view out toward the rear yard a little bit more.
I would agree.
Because that wall lines up, that right-hand side wall that I'm looking at with the double window in it,
Yep,
that lines up with the master bedroom window wall.
right.
So you would still get that appearance, but you'd have a notch before you hit the rest of that remaining wall that lined up with your roof plane.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think
Okay,
that's
okay.
a little odd to have that.
But here, you actually, there it
Wall.
doesn't look like it lines up. In your plan, it does.
That, I did that, that was, you know, the accuracy, well, I should say that it was a quick sketch for
Okay.
that.
All right, but they do line up, because I'm looking at the
Yeah.
floor plan, and it does.
Yeah,
So which I think that might make it even more awkward if it heads toward that ridge even more so, or becomes a deeper tunnel.
yeah.
So if you could entertain that, please. Otherwise, I don't have any questions. I've got comments. I'll save those for later.
Okay. What is your window material?
You know, I brought a window sample. I'm sorry I didn't put it up there. It's a aluminum-clad wood window with simulated divided lights. You have to excuse the color of the sample. This is the smallest sample, but it's not representative of. It's not representative of the color we're proposing for the house. The color of the windows would be the same as the trim, like a grayish green.
And I'm sorry, and what were the garage door materials?
It's wood, stained wood on the outside.
Okay.
with glass. And also like an iron handle and hinges and more like a historic carriage door. One of the reasons I included this, you know, it's not all the same, but similar to, I guess those don't have windows, but I said the massing of that. Maybe this is a little closer. I know that's from far away, but those are stained doors in a creamy white stucco field.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. At this time, we would invite anyone from the public who has any testimony regarding this petition. Please step forward. You can use the microphone. That one, I believe, is working, so that might be easier. And please state your name.
My name is Karen Fox. I'm at 775 East Illinois Road, so I am 3 doors east of the proposed house, and I am just here to voice my support and that of my neighbors. We think this is wonderful. We're thrilled. We can't wait. The demolition they were talking about and taking photos of those other 2 houses, I hope they hurry up because they may not be there very long. They really need to come down. There's no question about that, and we think this would be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak regarding this petition? Hearing none, does the petitioner have any response or final comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any final questions from the board? Okay, at this time then, we will take it to board discussion and comments. Jonathan, I think you said you had some comments.
Yeah, I've got some comments. Well, I just want to commend the architect on a wonderful presentation. I think it's simple and, you know, easy to understand with the few questions that we had. I think it helps to see the little thumbnail perspective sketches, and I think you brought all your materials, and it appears you're ready to present to us, and I appreciate that. Also, to the client, I know this is the second time we've seen it, and with a different design, and it appears that, I think we may have been a little subtle on some of our responses and concerns about flipping the house and that kind of thing, and I think you heard it loud and clear. I think it was maybe a whisper, but it obviously suggested that you know, you do flip the design, you get that handicap accessibility on the higher end of the property. I'm surprised you didn't take advantage, or maybe you did, of some window wells on that western side that allow a little bit more lighting. You've got an opportunity there, I think, with some grading to get some better lighting in there. The design, I know, you know, your company does a wonderful job with this style of architecture, so I know from past experience that you're in good, capable hands, and I'm not that concerned that the details are going to be something that are not without a lot of experience in building this product. So I've got a good comfort level with all of that. I think the design is, I mean, it's simple, it's elegant. I think the way you brought it down to more of a cottage or one-story scale, I think is very appropriate. I know those houses that are out there are very worthy of a wrecking ball and have been for a long time. I think also the trees out there. I saw that there was a letter in our petition that suggested from one of the neighbors that they were more than happy to cut the box elder and all the weed variety trees that have overgrown along the property line and around the foundations of these existing homes. And at first glance, I think the landscape plan is nicely done. I think the choice of materials, the use of windows, with the exception of the one that we just talked about in the question period, are laid out nicely. I think there's a nice romantic feel. They seem to be appropriate in the plan and how, you know, I really like the project. I think you've done a great job. The columns to the question that I asked earlier, I think you did answer it. I think there is a degree of function and usage that overrides a design purity, especially when the house is romantic like this. It can get whimsical, and that is acceptable. I do like the metal roofs. I'd love to see them in copper. I realize the cost of copper these days is something that might be worth a concern. I'd like to offer a trade-off in the copper to the asphalt shingles. In my opinion, I agree with Chris that, you know, the 40-year textured asphalt shingles, most people would be hard-pressed to see the difference between a machine-cut cedar shingle after a few years. And the lifespan and the cost, I have no problem with the asphalt shingles used here. And then as far as the garage door facing front, I know what's across the street there. It's the back end of the ice arena, and it's where they dump a lot of their ice when they scrape it off, and there's just not a lot of pretty things to see across the way, or anybody looking in to see that we're looking at garage doors. And I also think the way that the street meanders around, that the side of these views as you're curving around Illinois are probably more prominent than the quick pass by that you have when you're looking straight on. So I don't think there's too much I don't support on this project. I think it's a nice job, and I commend the process seems to have worked, and I'm glad to see you back here with us. Thank you.
I'd like to comment a little bit. I think I too echo most of John's comments. Actually, there's nothing I don't disagree with John. With Charlie, as far as moving the house back, I know we had somewhat of this discussion in January. The lots are funny. The house to the north, their lot is considerably deeper. The lot to the south, the flag lot, that's where kind of the guy has to be. I think somebody asked if that's a buildable lot. I think his driveway circles through that lot. I can understand the petitioner's reason. They want some backyard, as much as they can get. So I have no problem with the location of the house. Looking 2 doors north, 713, they're a lot closer, and the fact that the road curves, so I think they've done a great job, and I can support the project as it's been explained. That's all.
Thank you, Steuart.
I think it's a nice improvement. I like the siding now with switching the garage over, and like the materials, the stucco, I think is going to be a handsome addition. I am still concerned about the siding. I think it is too far forward, and I think with that roof line, it just kind of emphasizes, you know, that building up close and personal, and I think it would be a better use of materials to go with a natural product on that roof. I'd like to see it, but it is a big improvement. I appreciate the changes you folks have made in the design, certainly.
I do appreciate you know, the use of the French country style and trying to bring the home down to more of a one-story element at the street level. I do, however, have concerns with street-facing garage doors. I'm very familiar with the neighborhood, and most of the homes in the area, you know, have a side-loading garage or detached garage. There are a few that have the front-loading, but most of them do not, and I would like to, you know, abide by the design guidelines, if possible, to not have the front-loading garage. I totally understand why, you know, you want to have a attached garage, but I am uncomfortable with the front-facing. Although, you know, I think the style of the home is nice, the massing is nice, I'm just uncomfortable with the front-loaded garages. I think it sets a precedent for the neighborhood. That's why I'd asked if that other lot was a vacant lot, because then we end up with more of those in a neighborhood that traditionally didn't have it. And even though the college fields are across the street, I still think Illinois is a very prominent street in East Lake Forest, and a lot of people drive by it daily, and to have that garage face, I think is just not something that I'm comfortable with. I think the materials are all wonderful and high quality. I'm just not comfortable with the front-facing garage doors.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we have before okayed the front-facing garages, so in this case, I'm not entirely against it. And as far as the siding, I think even last time we talked about it, I'm okay with the siding based on it, just because of the way the road turns right around there. Overall, I think it's a vast improvement, as everyone else has commented, and that the style makes it, I think the streetscape is much easier to agree with the siding of the home. Okay, so what I'm hearing is we have a little bit of concern about the front-loading garages and a little bit of siding. Is that correct?
Siding and roofing materials.
Roofing materials, okay. Okay.
Well, and the cedar, it's a higher quality. I don't know if it's more consistent in the neighborhood than the asphalt. It will look similar. If, yeah, I could go either way on it, but, you know, I'd rather see copper than some pure colored, you know. I'm assuming the patinaed colored copper is this greenish color that you're considering. You know, a raised seam sheet metal roof of a pure color doesn't quite have that same patina that the copper gets.
That a true copper.
That a true copper would
Agreed.
get, and especially as it ages over time. I mean, that to me is the element where, and if you remember, the way I suggested accepting this was kind of as a financial trade-off to using copper rather than a less expensive sheet metal. So
I'd agree with that. I think
that's
that
the
would
way I'm
stand.
looking at it. I don't want to just run up
Right.
their costs, you know, all over the place with adding what's, you know, better. And then I think to address, and Monica, I'm not, the way I'm looking at this, and I've seen it on the site, there's so much open space to either side that the exposure when you're coming down the street of anything on the side-loaded garage, to me, I have more time to look at something as I'm running, you know, parallel to it than I would perpendicular to it at that point. So that's why I'm willing to, you know, suggest that the front load works here. If there were a lot of neighbors across the street, if the houses to either side didn't have front load, you know, if it was a precedent in the neighborhood, I'd lean more toward a side load. But that's my argument for suggesting that seems to work for me here.
Some of my earlier questions about the overall width of the home, you know, on the street face is a concern of mine, because it is so wide and up closer towards the street than any of the other flanking homes. And, you know, the garage is also, you know, fairly close to the street compared to, like, if it were to be detached or set back a little bit more, I think you'd be able to relieve some of that mass from the street that I'm uncomfortable with, and especially because it's a front-loaded garage. And going back to the roof thing, my 2 cents on that, there is a lot of roof exposed. It's the front elevation and both sides. So I think that's probably one of the reasons staff mentioned a more natural material, because it's very prominent.
Well, if it helps at all, and there's the one site plan, or maybe it's the landscape plan, but it says site plan on the top. It shows a fair amount. It shows 3 evergreen that are almost directly opposite the way the driveway curves. So I think if you're standing right centered on the garage at the sidewalk, it appears that those evergreen trees might offer enough screening from a straight-on, elevation perspective too.
At some point in time.
We can ask them how big those are gonna be, and, if they're gonna be 8-foot tall trees, or
Yeah,
if
we
those
can
are even, a couple of them look like they're existing, is that right? With the big black circles in the middle? I'm looking at your site plan, Chris.
If I could just make a comment about the landscape plan.
Yeah, it's inconsistent with the one drawing.
I believe the addition of the evergreen screening is part of the proposed landscape plan. The petitioner has been working with the city arborist, and the conditions of approval for a landscape plan would allow the arborist to continue to work with the petitioner to screen and enhance consistent with the board's direction.
Okay. Well, that being said, I believe we should be sure that we have the appropriate screening then, if that's what we're looking for. As a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest, I'm looking at the site plan, or the landscape plan that was submitted, and
That shows a bunch of Norway spruce.
To further our discussion regarding the siting, Charlie, if you look at the site plan of the adjoining homes, they have large, the homes are clearly set back further, but their front yards have a significant amount of asphalt and driveway in them. And so I think, people need, based because of it's Illinois, I think they had put a lot of that in there. So I think that moving it forward, you're now getting more probably impervious surface as opposed to putting more asphalt in if you site it further back.
Yeah. That's one thing.
if I may, to the point about the site plan, landscape on the site plan, that is correct. The most current landscape plan, we've added within the green or grassed lawn areas, there are 2 shagbark hickory trees that have been added to the landscape plan for additional screening. That's represented as that large, let's say, ball to the far right, as well as that one on the left there in the foreground. So that's an addition since the last, I have to say, the last site plan wasn't updated by the engineer. But this in fact reflects the most current landscape plan.
And I think any approval we make would definitely be contingent on working further with the landscape plan to clarify what it is that we're really doing with the attempt to screen the garage doors as much as possible with evergreen screening and diminishing the fact that this house, because of the virtue of the houses to either side, appears to be out further. I think there's enough landscaping there to mitigate that.
Okay. Let's continue the board discussion on the roofing material. I think I heard two separate opinions. Charlie, Steuart, do you have an opinion on it?
I would roll with John that in time and a little bit of weathering to tell the difference between the architectural asphalt shingles and a machine-cut cedar shingle is going to be hard to tell. And given the petitioner's thoughts on the life of the 40-year, I don't believe there's anything that will last 40 years out of a shingle, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, other than slate, anyway, I have no problem with the asphalt shingle.
Okay. I personally would hope that you could find a way to do the natural wood shingles. I think they look so much better. Opinion, Charlie?
No, I agree. I mean,
Okay.
you know my opinion.
Okay. Further discussion, concerns?
I think we've got to take two things. So we've got to make a motion for the demolition.
Absolutely. So let's
I-
touch back on the demolition. At our prior meeting, we had all supported the idea of the demo. And I think we had gone through the details of that and the reasonings to allow that. So I think we're still in accordance with that.
Right,
correct?
and the only
Okay.
question I have we directed, I think that there was a suggestion from the audience that they take a photograph for has the petitioner been directed to do that or told what they want or what the city wants, or,
It is a condition on, it's a.
but who's gonna tell them what to do? I mean, take a picture and here's your picture and he's gone, or does somebody have to, somebody's gotta tell them what to do?
We will work with the petitioner to satisfy that
All right,
condition.
okay.
Good question.
That answers, you'll work with them, okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, that being said, do I hear a motion regarding the demolition and replacement structure?
I'll make a motion that we allow the two existing cottages on the properties 739 and 743, and their detached garages in the back be demolished, and prior to demolition, that the city staff will work with the petitioner to tell them what photographs they want for the Lake Forest Historical Archives.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Do I hear a motion regarding the replacement structure?
Well, I'll let John or somebody do that.
I'll try. I know I've introduced at least a contingency on the landscape. I'd like to maybe further a little bit of the discussion on the copper, so that I could put that in my motion. Are we suggesting that copper is a preferred material for the metal portion of roof? Do we have a consistency on that? I would say yes to that.
I think that would be a detriment, and that would be
Okay.
anything else.
Then I'd like to propose a motion to approve the design based on final landscape approval, archival photographs based on the city. Actually, any contingencies that staff has in the report included in my proposed vote here, and that the standing seam metal be installed as copper, and that the homeowner entertain machine-cut shingles and work with staff rather than bring it back to the board. Also, the window that I discussed with Chris on the master bathroom, that be revised to eliminate that wing wall. And if that isn't enough, that's my motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay?
We have 3 in favor, 2 opposed. It's, the motion carries, so congratulations. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a new petition, a request for approval of the demolition of an existing single-family residence and a replacement residence at 158 Washington Road. The owners and developers are Jamie and Sophia Childs. Representative is Jeff Letzer, project manager. Is there anyone who has any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Okay. Hearing none. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? My name is Jeff Letzer. I'm with Aspect Design. I'm the project manager working on this project. With me is Charles Amaro, who's the managing architect that I'm working under on this project. And the owners, Jamie and Sophia Childs, could not make it tonight. Unfortunately, with the rescheduling, they couldn't get out of an appointment, a meeting out of town. Their son, though, Peter, is also here representing their issues and concerns with the project. I'd like to give you a little bit of a history on the home itself at 158 Washington. When we first came, bought the project, they bought the property, the initial intent was to do an addition and remodel on the home. So in my packet there is an alternative design that we had worked on, and we actually had a meeting with staff, kind of went through some of the criteria that we were running up against on using the existing home. The existing home itself, the basic bones of it, the structure, kind of the foundation, is good. There would be still issues with some of the floor design and beams if we added a second floor, but in some of these older homes, a lot of times the foundation is always an issue. But this one was solid. So we started working through designs. The current home is a little bit under 1,000 square feet currently, and it has a detached garage in the back, 2-car, with actually a screen room towards the front facing the home. So when we started designing an alternative to this existing structure, we actually came up with a fairly, I think, straightforward design where we were going to add to the back, but then completely do a whole new second floor. Some of the issues then that came up with that, and especially working with staff that were pointed out to us, were quite a few variances. We would need a front yard variance because the current structure is past the 40-foot front yard setback. We would need a side yard setback because the current structure is within the 6-yard setback, excuse me. And then working with some of our designs, because the home is nearly 4 feet out of the ground, the current home. So to try to keep floor levels level, we would also be running into some FAR, kind of bulk issues with exposed basement. So some alternative designs were to actually step things down, but we'd almost have a 3-foot variance from one finished floor to the next. And then working through elevations, unfortunately, to keep the new structure within the current setbacks, kind of cause an offset design from the side and the front, which unfortunately we weren't too crazy about the overall look of it. So after meeting with staff, going through all these items, Megan told us, hey, you're going to be going through a full demo process on this house. Have you thought about just tearing it down and doing new? So after that meeting, Jamie Childs really kind of went through the process of numbers and just cost, and we decided to move that way. So in your packet, I believe, is our criterias for the demolition, which I believe staff has recommended on all items to approve. So I can obviously review any questions you have on that. So moving to the new structure, what we wanted to do was build a home obviously a little more friendly to today's use and family life. Again, the current home was just really a two-bedroom, kind of tiny little cottage with some additions to it. Now, we are still going to use the existing two-car detached garage in the rear, leave its screen room there because it's actually a quite nice feature, but reclad it, redo that existing garage. The property itself is narrow. It's only 50 feet wide. And currently, the property to the north have somewhat of a shared asphalt driveway leading in and then past a point of the property on the north that does separate going to our garage. So all those issues of the width of the property, we have a home that's actually narrower than the home to the south and actually to the north, just due to the fact that it fit on the zoning and the driveways. And our property also, there's a slight increase in the grade. So we are very concerned about the massing and the bulk of the front of this home. So we have stepped down the second floor, we've dropped plate lines, roof lines, and we're below the maximum what's allowed by zoning, and we're also at nearly the same level to the home to the south of us. So we feel that the bulk and the mass of the house is appropriate for our streetscape. Again, with the width of the house only being roughly 30 feet, the new home, proposed home, is deeper than what was there currently. Now, we have split the massing of the house up in various gable forms to represent almost about a 22 to 23 foot wide face on all four elevations of the house with a gable. Also important, we felt, was a front porch element on the home, but being that you drive in kind of this north side and sharing a driveway, we've also have a porch kind of L-shaped wrapping down the side, which really kind of is a nice friendly elevation face as you pull into the home. Now we're proposing cedar siding, white kind of window trim and trims. We're a little uncertain on color right now of the house. We were thinking of maybe grays, but we might be leaning towards a little bit of a lighter beige tone also. So we're still working on that a little bit, but definitely white trim, white windows, a stained front door, white porch material, and that would translate also then to the detached garage. And also in the front of the home, there is a very nice tree that we will be protecting. And actually, we've even kind of pushed the house itself back a little bit farther to help protect that. Our porch element is roughly at the 40 foot, it's about 41 feet from the property, but the porch itself is 7 feet deep. So the main structure of the house is still a good 48 feet from our property front. There is one tree, though, in the kind of the back of the house that we would be removing. And I believe we've had Maybe Megan, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if the city arborist has looked at that yet or not. Okay. But I believe that was also reviewed. And then in our packet in front of you, we have the proposed elevations, proposed floor plans. We have overlays of existing to our new. We have streetscape elevations, so you can see what's there currently and then what we're also proposing. And this house is designed to have no variances whatsoever. It's currently designed to meet all the bulk codes, setback codes, height, I believe everything ready for a permit. And then we have also in that packet, we have a grading plan, again, which I believe staff engineering has reviewed. We have a landscape plan. One challenge with the landscape plan being that the home to the right has a shared blacktop current driveway. Buffering of the home to the north is definitely challenging because it's all pavement at that point. We are definitely buffering from the south, and where the pavement opens up going to our detached garage, we do have some tree buffering in there. There is plantings, though, across kind of the north face. I think I would open it up to you guys.
Thank you. At this time, we will have staff report on this petition, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This neighborhood has seen a lot of redevelopment in the past years. I would say some have been successful and blended well into the neighborhood, and others may not quite fit into the character of the smaller, more utilitarian structures. I mean, in fact, on this agenda alone this evening, there are 3 projects for new construction in this neighborhood. I think that's pretty significant to note. And also acknowledge that the board's work with those projects is very important to help foster and preserve this unique character of the smaller lots and smaller homes in Lake Forest. As was mentioned by the petitioner, this project did come forward, or this demolition request did come out of an exploration of alternatives to demolition. In the end, looking at the desire to increase the size of the home, there were some challenges with building scale, with setbacks, with awkward massing that resulted from some of the restraints from a zoning standpoint. The concept of a replacement structure in the end appears to provide a better end product than expansion of the existing home. Just some basic comments on the design. We are recommending approval with several conditions of approval. There are some opportunities for board input on the design, in particular on the north elevation to the rear. The massing on the back corner may have some opportunities to be further reduced to better respond to some of the smaller homes to the north, and some of the details of the porch and those details that really make the home attractive to the pedestrian scale, I think will be important for this project. Just one clarification with respect to the driveway. The property to the north does have a driveway immediately adjacent to the driveway on this subject property. There are some conditions of approval relating to making sure that all construction happens on this private property and does not cross over to the neighboring property. With clear direction from the board with this project, we are recommending approval with the conditions noted in the staff report. I would like to mention some contacts that we've received from the neighborhood with concern for construction parking and construction activity, and given the number of projects that are going on in this area, there is several conditions relating to construction parking and restoration of parkways if there is damage, to make sure that After construction, there's no negative impact on the streetscape and neighboring properties. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, but again, we are recommending approval.
Thank you, Megan.
Oh, and I promised to speak to the landscaping, and I forgot. So if I could, one more comment. The city arborist did look at a conceptual landscape plan. As noted in the conditions of approval, the city arborist will continue to work with the petitioner to make sure that the minimum landscape requirements for new construction are met. There are some opportunities in the rear yard to install some additional plantings and really work to preserve the large tree in the front yard. That tree does have a streetscape presence and will be important to protect during construction. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now take it to the board for any questions or requests for clarification to staff or to the petitioner.
I have a question. To the petitioner. You're gaining square footage because the new structure will be deeper into the lot. Actually, the front of the house is where the existing structure is now.
It's actually the front of the new home would be pushed back.
Pushed back a little bit.
Yeah,
but then
almost
you're-
10 feet, actually.
You're picking up space between the existing garage, which you're not gonna move, and would be the west end of the house.
Absolutely correct,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, the house is definitely deeper
Yes,
that way than the current structure.
okay, thank you.
Could you please clarify? I'm looking at the landscape plan, and to me, it looks like it's a different footprint than your first floor plan. It looks as though the porch on the front side actually attaches into the main body of the house on the landscape plan. Is that from an
Yes.
earlier scheme, perhaps?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There was and I apologize for that. We did, as working through staff on this submittal process, we did modify that whole front porch element, where initially it was only it was only like about 3 to 4 foot in depth. And we actually increased our porch depth to 7. And either I didn't give you guys the right landscape plan, or that was never updated. So you're absolutely correct. I
Okay.
apologize.
But the first floor plan that you're presenting is the
Is
scheme that,
accurate,
that
yeah.
that you would like us to review?
Yeah, if you look at even our kind of site plan, as we have labeled AR1, the sheet, that it might be a little clearer to see the front porch element as it protrudes out from the face of the house.
Okay, what would you say the style of this house is?
It's a colonial kind of revival feel. Again, the homes in the area are definitely of a modest nature, or most of the character of the street was. I mean, there's definitely some newer home elements that might have been built 3 to 4 years ago that maybe a little grander scale. We didn't feel that was appropriate for this width of lot and the size of the width of the house.
Okay.
So we wanted to keep the overall width of the house narrow and with gables and porch elements that way.
So more like the kind of colonial farmhouse type of style that's,
Exactly.
typical of the
And in
neighborhood.
perfect world, that would be just an idyllic little 4-square little house that would have worked well 100 years ago, but unfortunately, we need a little more square footage.
So staff has some recommendations about like the eave returns and some detailings, and you would be willing to?
Yes, I didn't know when appropriate to talk about that. Staff in their report had mentioned details. There's a few of them that are very, very simple and totally agree. One of them was a kind of a pork chop return, which we would do, just bring it down and plumb the piece in, almost as the existing house has a detail. Again, simple, modest details. That's easy to do. We would be more than happy to do that. The one question on the front porch in the staff report, they had The house itself, because we are so kind of tight with the property, and the way your zoning code reads, it actually includes overhangs and the gutter. So we're literally a foot away from the property line to the south. So with a 6-inch overhang and a 4-inch gutter, we're about 2 inches away. So that's why the actual overhangs are kind of tight on the main body of the house. The front porch, we did have at 1 foot. You know, I could see it going either way. The 1 foot on the porch, though, being a lower scale, just seemed a little more appropriate. But we could, you know, definitely keep it consistent with all the other overhangs.
let's see. Did you consider other roof pitches when you were designing the house? It seems to me that the proportion of the front, you know, gable and the roof pitch could use some refinement or different detailing. I mean,
To answer your question, initially when we were designing, we even had a much shallower pitch roof. We were even down to almost a 512 pitch on the main roof. And kind of looking at it, it looks like kind of somebody sat on it. It just didn't look appropriate at all.
right,
Especially with the style of home.
right.
You know, the style of home did have, not real steep, but relatively steep, and because of the width of the mass,
Right,
you know, this is an 812 roof, where if this was to be a bigger width, you get much more height. But being that it's only about 22 feet wide, and we dropped that whole hat kind of down, we dropped the plate line of the second floor down to 7 feet, and in other areas, it's actually down to 6.5 feet. So we're even breaking up the facial lines all the way around the house. So the gables somewhat have somewhat of an additive feel. And I know staff had commented on a north element roof where we had a shed kind of piece. And our thinking there was, again, we were trying to maintain a 22 to 23 foot width portion of gable on all 4 sides of the home. And we really like the way the rear of the home balanced nicely with the fireplace, some doors and windows that's centered, and kind of the core of the house, the main ridge of the house, run all the way through. So that was our attempt, actually, to keep mass down on that north side.
And in the staff report, you did take note then on the rear elevation, they're concerned about it overhanging the first floor?
Yes,
Is
yeah,
that
there was
something you're willing to
portion,
address?
and let me maybe give you a brief explanation. When we were designing, trying to break up mass of that north-facing roof, we did pull in that second floor from the first floor. And I think staff brought up a great recommendation. I mean, it just looks odd right now. It's like kind of sticking past.
Right.
So I think we were looking at either bringing that column back in so it looked more appropriate stacking, or, Charles, actually, we were just even talking while we were prior to the meeting, maybe even in that rear elevation over that porch, actually putting in a small gable, so that little porch roof is more defined as a porch roof. And it kind of would cover that offset. Again, throwing out some ideas at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Jeff, along this foundation, and you see it at the front porch, and it looks like it's sticking out beyond a foot on most every elevation. What material is that faced with?
Right now, we have that as exposed concrete.
It's exposed concrete?
Yes.
You'd entertain brick or some other material for
We,
that?
we were looking at either insetting, maybe even a wood element, like a wood panel element. I know we do have some landscaping. I think we're trying to get landscaping right tight above there also at that point to cover that. Because right at that point, John, the grade drops kind of considerably in a short run to meet the current driveway. And one thing we did not want to get into is changing any engineering of that existing driveway because it affects, you know, the neighbor to the north and everyone else. So that was,
Is that represented on this north elevation I'm looking at? It looks like
Yeah.
grade is straight across. I see number
yeah,
685.
on the right elevation or north,
That looks like it's 685 consistently. Are you
Yes.
suggesting that it has a pitch to it?
from the front, no, at that point, it's consistent along that
Along that
elevation.
whole elevation?
Yes.
To that point, are you gonna get enough drainage off that existing driveway, or does it already drain
Yeah, it
properly?
already does drain, I believe, yes.
Any new services brought in to the existing building, or are you tying into what's there? Meaning electric and water and underground services?
It's all there now, yeah, we will,
Is the water service an inch and a half? Because it would need to be.
I think we need to look at that.
You
I'm
probably
not
have to
sure what
upgrade
that
it.
is, we might have to upgrade that to meet our current, you know, plumbing design.
It should be directionally bored and not drenched, the tree. I'm sure the city will pick that up. Some of the elements that I'm not really sure about on the porch, I see carpenter-built columns. Is that gonna be built out of a wood product? or
Yes,
is
all-
that-
yeah, that's all wood,
And the rail is also wood?
yes.
Would you consider a synthetic, like an AZAC or something that had less maintenance, or is that something that you just,
Yeah, I think we would consider that. You know, I guess I gotta watch, just sometimes to make sure the detailing of that is, just sometimes exposed edges and things like that are appropriate when you cut. Where, at that point, then you might introduce another molding, which may not be, might look a little bulky, but yeah, we would look at other product.
one of my concerns, and I'll bring it up during the comment period, are the locations of windows and more specific, maybe the locations of non-windows. There's areas that in the elevation, to me, look like they're void and deserving of some windows. And I think it's just, there's a bit too many for me to kind of discuss in the question format of this, but I'd like to have you address that when we get a little further in our discussion. Don't have any other questions?
I have a question on the west or rear elevation. You've got the rear porch, and then the two windows on either side of the chimney. Are those that look like French doors? Is there a concrete step? Are they usable as doors, or?
Yes, those are doors, and actually that would be going out to a patio.
And so this is a built-up patio, or are there steps down?
Yeah,
or-
there would be like one step down.
Okay, that'd be a porch step or something like that.
Yeah, it would be one step down, and then,
And then-
I believe too, a brick paver we wanted to stay with, yeah. like
Then you're on
a
ground
brick-
level on a brick paved patio or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. So they are usable? and
Yes.
Would probably be.
Yes, and those are actually like in the, kind of the great room, family room
Yeah, they're in the family
element.
room, yeah. Okay, that answers my question.
I have a question. The chimney material that you're using there?
Yes,
What is it?
that will be brick,
It is gonna be brick?
yes. Yeah, the chimney itself is all brick, all masonry construction.
Okay, great. And I got a question for Monica, Megan, I'm sorry. The maple tree behind the house, rather large tree, I'm still confused. Do they have to have a replacement through a series of trees with this landscape design, or what's, obviously with this design, it has to be taken down? And what's gonna be offsetting that with the city arborist?
Correct. The city arborist will look at that. We will require replacement inches on the property or a payment in lieu of for street trees in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I have a couple more small questions. The gable vents, are those operative or decorative?
And I would have those operable, those would be real louvers.
Okay. And the
the roof material of the bay window in the front elevation is,
Actually, that would, we're at this point, we're still proposing just shingled on that, asphalt shingle to match the roof.
okay.
Can you elaborate a little further on what kind of asphalt shingles?
We're gonna do an architectural grade shingle. We're looking at, again, we're working on the colors a little bit right now. Again, initially, we were thinking gray on the house, but we might go to a kind of a light beige tone. So we were thinking of a architectural grade shingle to complement kind of either or. Definitely a browns to grays kind of roof color. But it would definitely be I guess we could look at year warranty and the thickness, but definitely at least a 30 to 40-year architectural grade shingle.
What's the material of the porch aprons? Like on the front elevation, it's like blank?
Concrete.
Oh, like on
It's all
on that
concrete?
front?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Gianna, we
Oh,
were
I thought
talking
that was
about-
just the
Yeah,
the
that's actually,
side.
at this point, it's exposed concrete. We do have, that's right where the grade kind of drops down to meet the driveway.
Oh, okay.
So we have that just as concrete right now. John was bringing up, did we entertain any other maybe material to cover that? I think we could, but we do have landscaping planned there.
Oh, okay.
Not along that north elevation with the driveway.
No, not too much north there, yeah.
You might
Yeah,
have a
just
little-
kind of in the front here.
Mhm.
But so that concrete, the top of the wall comes up almost to the first floor line at that porch then, or? Okay,
Yeah, at that porch level.
Okay.
And I go in, even initially, because of that grade, we were exploring either, kind of looking at either like a wood panel kind of feel, kind of match all the other pieces of the wood there. So that's something we could still kind of work through detail-wise with the porch detail.
Earlier, you were talking about adding a small gable. Where were you referencing that?
We're considering, if you look at our rear elevation, which is the west, it's sheet AR3. Currently, there's a rear kind of porch there that the second floor is actually built over.
Right.
And then in our designs, when we kind of push that wall back to create a gable and a shed there, that little piece kind of was formed, and that's where that column, it's definitely a little awkward. We definitely need to fix that. But we were considering looking at that elevation, instead of just having a little piece of a shed, almost roof going up, actually doing a gable to make it look like a porch roof. And possibly, and I know staff was talking about reducing some of the porch overhangs, that's where almost I'd like to keep it at least a foot, so it gives it some meat of the roof kind of going back to the house also. And then it would kind of hide that whole offset too. I think it would just look a lot more appropriate.
I have an alternative to that thought, if this is the appropriate time to discuss that with you. I don't know if it's questions or comment period, but,
Please, no.
Jeff, when you were describing that, or actually before you even described it, I drew this, and it shows up on that north elevation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in other words, what you might do is extend that shed on the rear and complete that in that, with a pediment, and then end that, that other side with a corner board to simulate the column there. So
Oh,
it
actually
doesn't
going that
seem to
way.
be that awkward cantilever on that north elevation. So, if I was
And
describing
actually, we
that,
do have a
where I
little
think this
bit of
looks
room
oddest is
too.
when you're looking at that
Right,
part and
right.
not directly on the rear.
Right, which is why I was asking that, because my concern was the massing here on the north. It looks,
Yeah, I thought that
That
looked
way
odd,
help.
but if we complete that with a pediment and, complete it on the left-hand side with another column engaged to the wall, I think now it appears, it hides that odd cantilever on the north side. So, if you'd entertain that,
Yeah,
we
no.
could
Great idea.
discuss that further. And Jeff, is there any way, when you're looking at this house, My biggest concern is the neighborhood. It's odd. You've got big houses, you've got little houses, you got really little houses, you got, you know, it's really a mishmash. And to start making every little house a full two-story house, suddenly becomes that domino effect that, you know, we're looking at a neighborhood where, you know, large houses on small lots, which is why our ordinance, our guidelines, our bulk, and everything is trying to soften that blow. I'm looking at this, and particularly the north elevation that relates to the smaller house. You get the very large two-story block on the south, but to the north, you've got a one-story cottage. I'm looking at opportunities where some of those rooms along that side are closets and, you know, bathrooms where, you know, toilets don't need an 8-foot wall next to them, and bathtubs, and, you know, a third bedroom that if you drop the gable down, you get the tall space in the bedroom where you need it, and then start to reduce inside the closets where you still get the hanging height. But you can turn most, if not all, of that northern wall into something that is maybe, you know, somewhere at 5.5 feet and not 8, and lessen the bulk or the scale to the house that is a much smaller house. So
Could I just
wonder if we can
respond real
entertain
quick,
some of
John?
those plate heights.
Can I just respond real quick, one item, I don't want to interrupt, but on that actually particular wall, that gable, I dropped down, we're at 6'6" now. I dropped that. The kind of the main cube of the house is 7. I dropped that element down to 6'6". So exactly as you're describing, we'd be clipping kind of the master closet and a bedroom closet. You know, so I get, you know, lowering that hat even farther.
And maybe it's just picked up in that gable where just that notch, that 1 foot along the north side, and maybe just the portion of that closet drops down dramatically even more. So it becomes a trick on the outside, still trying to maintain as much height and wall space that you need to live and furnish, and get doors into. Certainly there's where
Sure.
there's a problem
Right.
that arises.
But we
right
definitely have
there.
an opportunity though with those, because those 2 points are closets.
Right.
You know,
Would
so
you be
we-
interested in
And like I say,
entertaining
we've
that?
already clipped down to 6.5, but I think we could go, I don't think I'd want to go any lower than 5'6". You know, but we could pick up a foot at that point. And that will just kind of help that whole mass of that north gable there.
Now, you said you hadn't chosen color yet, but is the front, what was the front facade again? Was that cedar?
Yeah, all the siding would be a horizontal cedar clapboard. Exactly.
Okay, okay. And please refresh my memory, what are the colors of the 2 neighboring houses?
I believe the neighboring house to the north is gray. Hold on, let me just double check before I say anything. Yeah, I believe the house to the north is gray with white trims now. And the house to the south is actually a somewhat of a stucco, I don't necessarily want to say peach, but in that family.
And then the upper?
And then the upper is a
Is the-
gray
Right,
kind of stain, so that's why initially we kind of thought gray, but then it was like, gray, we're gonna,
Right,
you know,
I would
I
have
thought
a
a little
cons-
much, so that's why we're kind of entertaining going to a little bit more of a beige,
right.
kind of a tan family.
Okay, yeah, I would have a
To break
concern
that
if
up
it's
just a little
too
bit.
similar to both
Yeah,
adjoining houses.
exactly.
Okay. And what are the window materials?
It'd be an aluminum clad exterior wood window. And the grill work would be a grill actually between the panes of glass. And we've got kind of grill work just on the upper sash vertically. And actually, we were kicking around, maybe even, we do have full bars in those French doors currently. And we were kind of contemplating maybe even just removing those, because the door, the overall width of that door is only 5 feet, so they're only 2.5 foot panels. So we're getting a little concerned that, you know, kind of the jail cell look, it might be a little too many bars in that tight of a glass.
Any further questions?
Was there a structural report done on the existing house?
No, we did not do a structural report. We've been there, and again, just observing, looking, we felt the concrete itself, foundation was good. There definitely would have been, the existing kind of wood beams, there's actually wood girders in the house instead of steel. So if we did that second floor, either we would have been clear spanning to not add load on it, or replacing.
So you're keeping the garage, correct?
Yes, yes,
And
we
what's
want
the-
to keep the garage element, but reclad it, reshingle it, new doors, new windows, new screen openings. Because it's somewhat of a unique element. It's a 2-car garage, which we felt is more than appropriate for the size of home. But it has a screen room facing the house. So it's kind of a great kind of built-in feature, and we want to use it. Coming kind of off the patio, people can walk into that element and use it. Definitely needs a cosmetic repair, which we're more than happy to do to match the rest of the home.
So you'll match the windows then?
Actually, there's screen openings.
Okay,
So we're gonna actually do a wood frame with screen, but we're proposing doing like kind of vertical top bar to match the windows.
okay. Because if we're changing anything there, you know, you want to be sure that you have a matching element on it.
Yes. And actually, we are gonna replace the overhead garage doors, kind of as you see it on the kind of second last sheet of our drawing. Now it's just kind of a flush panel garage. I kind of have existing and proposed next to one another there.
Right,
We're gonna do a new, kind of more of a cottage element door with glass lights at the top. The door would be painted though, we will paint, again, to kind of match everything else what we're proposing on the home.
okay. Any further questions? Okay,
Oh, yes.
Please.
Material on the bay roof.
We has as asphalt.
at this time, we would allow for anyone from the public to provide testimony regarding this petition. Hearing none. Does the petitioner have any final comments before we take it to board discussion?
I think I would just like to add some of the staff comments and some of the things we discussed. I think we're all in line of making those kind of revisions and changes that I'm sure we could work with staff on to make appropriate as we move forward here.
Great, thank you. Excellent. Any final questions from the board? Okay, then we will take it to discussion. Thank you. Okay, I'll just start with, it seems like there are a fair number of items that are open for discussion. However, the petitioner is willing to follow the recommendations, I believe.
And to follow up on that, I'm concerned there might be a lot of little things.
Agreed.
That I don't think we could possibly cover in any kind of a decision or contingencies
That's
on
right.
our vote. I mean,
Okay.
you know, things I didn't ask, but I pretty much know the answer. Why isn't the front door centered on that space? And I'm sure the answer was, well, because I have the stairs coming down and
Right.
and that kind of stuff. And then, you know, my next question would be, well, could you add winders to the stairs to reduce where they come down and then get the door centered and that kind of thing? So almost a subcommittee working session approach to this would probably get it to where it needs to be. And that's addressing, you know, windows and stuff. I mean, why under this porch that wraps around, is there, you know, no windows that, you know, decorate the wall and, you know, from somebody enjoying the space out there? You know, there's an opportunity to put another door that goes into the study off the end of the porch and get some circulation going. There's, you know, we did talk about that gable treatment to the cantilever that comes off the back and how we might approach, you know, doing that. And I just think there's far too many for us to consider. I rather than, well, we maybe get an opportunity to comment, but my recommendation for this is to take it to subcommittee and, you know, fine tune those details and find out more about the color. Discuss what we might do to the concrete that projects outside the, you know, it looks like a couple of feet in some cases, and, you know, you can stop the foundation down at grade in that case and build it up with block and brick with very little expense and a great deal of impact on what that might look like. So I'm not prepared to go too much into comments, but just that I like the direction. I think it is a tricky neighborhood. I think some of the fenestration elements need to be cleaned up in some of the details. But I can, you know, I guess I can support, you know, the demolition. It appears that they did try to come up with designs that saved the foundation or saved some of the walls and worked with as much of it as possible. And it seemed like staff was involved in this process. And I think everybody probably just threw up their hands as, you know, it's cheaper to demo and rebuild and push it back so it's not a non-conforming setback. I think there's positive elements that as we move along with some of the details, it might be a nice project in the long run.
Well, I agree with your comment, John, that I think there's enough here that we want to cover and make sure we get right, that a subcommittee's probably the way to go here. I would say that we're far enough along, though, that I would hope the subcommittee probably has approval rights. We wouldn't maybe have to see it back here as a full board, but we can discuss that certainly. I do like this, the general design. I think it's real nice, clean design, you know, nothing crazy here. I think it will ultimately fit nicely in that neighborhood. I do like the reuse of the garage. I mean, why not reuse that and don't have to waste that materials? And so, in general, I'm supportive of this project with some of these slight adaptations we were discussing.
I think I agree with that. I think a continuation of this through a subcommittee is in order. I would applaud their decision to tear the existing place down with the age of the construction and the amount of foundation that sticks out of the ground with the variances that they would need. Another thing, and staff covers it quite well in their report, that in building the contractors, that's going to be a hassle. And I'm sure that the plumbers and the electricians don't like being ferried to jobs because they've got all their stuff in their truck, but I think you're going to have to deal with that. And I think the city will be very active. If it doesn't happen, there'll be some problems. So.
Yeah. I also agree that a subcommittee is probably the best, you know, option right now. I think, you know, I like the simplicity of the mass. I just think it needs some more detailing. Some of the proportions probably could be worked upon. The front porch, I think there could be some improvement there. I actually liked that old site plan where the porch kind of engaged in the body of the home. But anyways, I think, you know, going to subcommittee would be well worth the time. So. And I applaud that it's under bulk and, you know, within the setbacks and also, and reusing the garage. It's a great garage, so.
Okay. Okay, I think we're in agreement on that. There just seem to be enough details that we don't want to leave untouched. Okay, based on that, do I hear a motion regarding this petition?
I'll move that we continue the petition for 158 Washington Road through use of a subcommittee and to finalize some of the details. I think it should be brought back to the board. I guess that's my decision, or that's my motion.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's appropriate.
Sure.
So I will second that motion.
We had a second from Monica, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion carries to continue the petition.
Would you mind clarifying that then? So we would go to subcommittee, or this is just going to come back to the full board? I didn't hear that.
It will come back to full board. It is a continued petition. However, we can still recommend a subcommittee to assist you in this,
Okay.
okay?
And one other clarification, and I don't know if this is correct. Was there clarity on the demolition side, or is that,
Yes,
would
yes,
you come
yes.
back and talk
did
about
have-
that again?
I think, as I recall, I think most of us favor the demolition. We wouldn't put a, you don't put a motion out on the demolition until you have a set of plans that you can approve for what's gonna happen. So when it comes back to the board with, work through the subcommittee, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, at that time, and everybody likes what we see, on the new structure that's gonna be built there, then the demolition would be, a motion for the demolition would come forward.
Yeah, because they're subject to the replacement structure.
Okay, just want to clarify. Thank you.
But we did have support for the demolition, as what the comments were.
Okay,
Are
great.
you familiar with the subcommittee?
Don't
What's
tear
gonna
it down
happen
yet.
is there'll be two people
Wait.
that, or so, and then you, through Megan, and you'll work with them and have a
Yes.
meeting and thrash it out.
Not a problem. All right, great.
Excellent.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Next item on the agenda is a request for approval of a partial demolition and a replacement addition at 567 Lexington Drive. The owners are Timothy and Heather Richmond, and representative is John Richard, the architect. Do we have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts?
I know the presenter quite well, but it won't influence my decisions and my opinion on the project.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Hey, John.
If you could use the microphone at the podium, I believe that one is not working this evening. There should be a clicker at the podium that you can move your slides.
Okay. Hi, my name's John Richards. I'm the architect on the project. This project's a little different than what we've been looking at so far tonight in that it's a remodeling project and not straight-up new construction. In coming up with the concept for this house, we've tried to be very sensitive to what's existing and tried to reuse as much as we could of the existing house and of the existing landscaping and hardscaping. This first slide shows the current streetscape and the site plan with the houses adjacent to the subject property. I think you can see that in this particular neighborhood, the zoning is a little bit awkward. None of the properties really comply with the zoning for the area. They're mostly 100-foot wide lots with 50-foot side yard setbacks. So pretty much impossible to comply to that. So with that as a given, really what we're trying to do is maintain the context of the neighborhood. And so, you know, the general height and footprint and scale of the house is very consistent with what's going on in the rest of the neighborhood. Most of the houses in the neighborhood have gable roofs and are fully two-story in their expression. The existing home on this property has the mansard roof, and it's a very fakey mansard roof, meaning that the first floor walls of the house basically continue up through the second floor, and the mansard roof is really applied in a very flat manner to the facade of the house. So we think it's of great benefit to get rid of the fakiness and to try to create something a little bit more natural and more in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. On the site plan for the proposed house, you can see that there are no existing trees that are being affected. We're trying to maintain as much of the existing house as we can, unchanged. The demolition plan, you can see that the garage, the mudroom, the living room, the sunroom, and what's currently the family room are all remaining unchanged. The family room is being repurposed as the dining room in the future plan. And then the existing dining room is basically being cut up to accommodate removal of the powder room from the foyer and a small office. But again, we're trying to maintain the integrity and the structure of the existing spaces. On the second floor, again, most of the bedrooms on the second floor and the secondary bath are all remaining basically unchanged. There are some window opening changes in those rooms. And then there's more significant remodeling for the master bedroom and master bath, which has one of the most unusual bathroom arrangements that I've ever seen. Incredibly unlivable and workable. So, on the new first floor, again, we're basically, the new space that we're adding is the family room on the back behind the garage and mudroom, and the breakfast area, which is behind the kitchen space. The other thing that we're adding on the first floor is the porch area to the front and south of the house, just providing shelter for the entrance and also a nice place to sit and enjoy the front yard and the street. One of the great things about this neighborhood are the lots. They're all really nice half-acre lots. Really nice, quiet, neighborly streets. People walk up and down the streets all day long. So it's really nice to be able to get out and sit on the front porch and interact with that, what's going on in the neighborhood. On the second floor, again, the 3 children's bedrooms and bathroom all kind of remaining the same, and the expansion of the master bedroom to be a more livable size and scale, more appropriate with what we strive for in our modern housing. Roof plan. So the front elevation, sorry, these turned a little muddy on the projection here, but the homeowners have an affinity for shingle-style homes, and so we have tried to incorporate some of that detailing into the new elevations for this house, while not kind of throwing away the baby with the bathwater. And it's not necessarily a pure interpretation of shingle style, just because of the existing constraints that we had. But what we're trying to do is enliven that front elevation with some additional depth. The porch is going to create a lot of nice light and shadow contrast, and then just upgrading the detailing to suit a more contemporary atmosphere. Side elevations, rear elevation. Again, we're trying to continue the detailing that we've used in the front around the whole house. This slide shows the existing elevation versus the proposed. So while we are adding height with the new roof lines and getting rid of the flat roof, we're still staying consistent with what's going on in the rest of the neighborhood. Section that just shows some of the heights throughout the house. And then there's the existing houses in the area, so you gotta have had all this in your packet, and I know you've all been by the site, so I'm gonna gloss through that. Site plan wise, again, we're trying to preserve a lot of what's there, so the front walk is gonna remain. We're gonna complement that with bluestone on the front porch and the new sitting porch area. In the back, we're going to maintain the existing garden wall that they have, and most of the existing landscaping will stay the same. We'll just really be adding landscaping where needed to screen and complement the additions. And with that, I'm going to keep it short and sweet because it's late, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions.
Thank you. Would staff please provide their report regarding this petition?
Thank you, Chairman. The request before the board is, as discussed by the petitioner, really to give a new face to the existing home and to expand the existing structure by changing the roof form and exposing the second floor walls, and giving it a new character than what it currently has. Given the scope of work and the amount of demolition proposed, this request is before the board for consideration. And just a note on the demolition, one of the recommended conditions of approval is to look closely at the amount of demolition proposed with this project and just verify as it moves forward into permitting drawings that it is consistent with the amount of demolition represented to the board, and that no additional portions of the home will be removed. A little bit of background on the lot. The project does require a zoning setback variance because there's virtually no building area on this lot. The zoning board will review the request for a zoning setback variance next week. The project before the building review board this evening is to consider the design and massing of the additions and the new roof form proposed. So the board does have standards with respect to site plan review that do speak to being in compliance with setback requirements. I think given the configuration of this lot and the fact that there really isn't a buildable area given the R5 zoning, board input and direction on the increased mass and the design of the project is suggested this evening, not only to respond to the board's standards, but also to inform the zoning board's discussion on the matter next week. I would say in general, the increased height and proposed architectural style is compatible with the neighborhood. It's an eclectic neighborhood in Lake Forest, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Megan. We will now take it to the board for discussion and questions regarding, or to the petitioner or staff.
Question to staff. I've designed in this neighborhood before, and it boggles my mind that there's no buildable area in any lot over in that whole subdivision. Why? And is that being changed at all?
It was a strange subdivision. Although we have, for a number of years, looked in the records, and neither of us were here when it was done, I can say that. But it was a controversial subdivision. The neighbors in the area have been approached from time to time about whether they would like to see a wholesale rezoning of that area. The R5 zoning on the property, the minimum lot size, as you notice, 3 acres, so it's wildly out of line. When we have in the past approached neighbors in that area, and we haven't done it for many, many years, but the concern was that if we start looking at the appropriate zoning to apply, in some cases there are some larger lots in that area, so if we did a mass rezoning, which would be the appropriate way to do it, you don't want to pluck 1 or 2 lots and have it just not make any sense, but if we came in and applied half-acre zoning to everything, there was a concern among some neighbors that theoretically, maybe not today, but in a time when the real estate market was more active, a developer could come in and purchase 3 lots and then actually re-subdivide those into 4 lots. So there was a concern about a unilateral zone change that could allow the density in the neighborhood to increase. The city wasn't going to force the issue. It has created some unique situations like this, but I think this is a case where a zoning variance is very well justified. We can certainly periodically approach the neighbors again, but it's, again, it's probably a neighborhood decision and not something that the city would force a zone change in this area. So it's an anomaly. It's different, but not unlike the fact that much of the east side of the community is zoned R4, where you have some very, very small lots. So Lake Forest is very unique, and that probably adds to the character.
Now, does staff have the authority to approve variances for smaller or less important remodels than this at a staff level, or does this always have to encumber the zoning board of appeals? Any project that goes on in there?
Staff does not have any authority to issue a permit for something that does not comply with the zoning code.
Which means everything in there. Now, Lincolnshire, not to bring up a conversation, they've got a booklet that they've created that defines setbacks almost on a lot-by-lot basis. And one house might have a 15-foot side yard setback, another house might have a 10. And what they did is they kind of went back in over time and developed another package that they've approved that might address, rather than just giving an R4 zoning district to the entire area, to provide a supplement to the zoning that has a case-by-case basis or a lot-by-lot basis. Is there any interest in pursuing that at staff level?
It's really a decision for the Plan Commission and City Council. Again, I think this area has been discussed in the past. Certainly something we can raise again and look into.
Just curious. Thanks.
I have a question for the petitioner. Are you reusing the existing first floor windows, and is that determining
Yes.
your window pane patterning for the rest of the house?
Yes.
Okay. What are those windows? Are they simulated divided light windows, or?
I believe the existing windows are true divided lights. And what we're proposing to use on the new windows is a clad simulated divided light.
Okay.
Eventually, all the windows will need to be replaced at some undetermined point, so
And they'll go to like a simulated divided light
they'll
window?
go to the simulated with the cladding, just for longevity and maintenance.
What is the material of the face of the dormers?
That's shingles as well.
It's all shingles. Okay.
And what color are the shingles that you're going to use, Andy?
We're proposing a gray. So the shingle color would be a gray color, and then the windows and trim in an off-white. And then the roof is the driftwood that we're showing here.
Are the garage doors wood?
For the garage doors, we're proposing a semi-custom product. Clopay makes a really attractive door that's a composite of like an AZAC material with a steel door that's painted. Looks like a painted wood door, but again has cost and maintenance benefits over the long run.
Okay.
And the shutters are wood?
The shutters would be a composite material as well. I hate to be very specific, but the wood residence,
Yeah.
where we use the composite shutters, nice stuff.
Okay. But they're not plastic per se.
Correct.
They've got some meat to them.
Right, they're the, you know, the heavy, you know, more like the AZAC type material, composite,
Okay.
machined and all that kind of good stuff.
And why, on the front elevation, why is there one roof vent, or gable end vent, and then other opportunities where it looks like they'd be appropriate on the side elevations, they're not being introduced?
We don't actually have any gable vents.
Well,
Oh,
there's a-
yeah, I see, yeah, I know.
There's a
what you're
square
have
gable
one.
end vent. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's decorative or what, but yeah, it appears that you've set up a language there that isn't followed through
Yeah,
on
we-
the sides and what have you, and it's, if
Yeah,
you
on the
switch,
front-
actually, if you click to the other
Yeah.
side elevation, there. I mean,
Yeah.
why not there and then on the other side as well?
Honestly, we didn't look at them on the side elevations. On the front, we did look at the front with having the vent in both gables. And the proportions on the smaller gable just didn't work properly.
Or the proportions on the larger vent don't work properly?
What's that?
Or the proportions on the larger vent don't work properly in the smaller gable?
Correct, yes. But honestly, I didn't look at it on the sides, so.
Okay.
It's
Would you
something that we-
entertain it there if
Something that
it
we
seemed
could consider,
appropriate?
certainly, yeah.
Are you increasing the height of the second floor?
No.
No.
Only in the master bedroom where we have the tray ceiling in the new space.
Right, okay.
The material in the front gables, vent area, is it a smooth wood product, or again?
Yeah, well, the louver would be a cedar louver. If you're talking about the detail above that, that would
Right.
be, yeah, like an AZAC type panel
Okay.
painted.
And I think going back to sort of what John was saying about getting the louvers in the side gables, I mean, it's a similar detail that you could have incorporated in those side
Yeah, that would be easy to do.
gables to make them a little bit more attractive. I noticed around the back and the sides of the homes, the second floor, or most of the windows don't have shutters, so I guess I just question if that front too wide window would need the shutters, since those shutters don't really close, so I think it's something you consider that you
Yeah,
might not
I
need
knew that
those.
question would come up, because it is a little anti-historical. But I probably should have brought the elevation without those on there to show you, but proportionally, the shutters do a certain degree of, you know, adding to the proportions of the overall house. It's a little stark without them.
Okay.
The first, the second floor window above the main entry there, that's a flower box detail you've got there. Is there any reason why you, besides the flower box, any reason for that to be up? I think there's a bedroom there, not a bathroom.
Correct. It's another area where we looked at an option with a single double hung window of the same height as the others. Again, it's a proportions game on this particular elevation, where the wider windows with flower box and the shutters proportionally works better, you know, in that space than the other alternative. And again, I know it's not purist. We were doing what looked best.
I'm sorry, are those casement windows then?
Those particular windows are casement
And
windows.
then they meet the egress requirement for
Correct.
that bedroom?
I have a question. Monica asked this, and I wasn't paying attention, but on the front and rear, on the top gable, that white section, that is this, it's a flat man-made material. That's the AZAC, right?
Correct.
And what color would that be? A similar color as to that of the shingles?
Yeah, oh, well, to the trim color.
Yeah, oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right, okay. And the trim is gonna be
The off-white.
an off-white, okay, all right.
And what size trim are we looking at around the windows?
It's, I believe I called it out as just a brick mold.
So about 1.5 inches?
2 1/4 is
2
a
1/4.
standard brick mold.
How far down does the existing roof actually come to the first floor? Are you going to have any of that first floor elevation that's exposed, that's going to need new brick?
No, that is taken up, there's the swoop detail
Right.
at the base of the shingles, and then there's the crown
Right.
and apron, so that's
Uh-huh.
gonna all come down to where that existing brick level is.
Okay.
And the planter box is wood?
Again, we would typically use an AZAC
AZAC or
material for
something.
that, just for an exposure reason.
And the brackets that are underneath that projecting top gable?
Cedar.
Cedar. And that projects out how far?
I believe that's a 6-inch projection.
Is there access to the space over the garage? Are those dormers purely decorative?
The dormers are decorative over the garage. The only access would be a required hatch that we'd have to have,
Okay.
either in the garage or in the mudroom.
And what is that gable, that empty gable made out of? Is that a MDX board trimmed out, or are you introducing stucco in that element?
No, that's what we're gonna use, like an AZAC panel.
It is a panel,
Yeah.
okay. And then are the vertical elements to that, are those applied, or are those routed into? or-
Applied.
They're applied. And that's to introduce kind of a stick style approach to the,
Correct. You know, the old field guide to American houses. It's the Bible.
and the chimney's existing?
Correct.
Including the cap, or does that have to be raised up?
No, it's all existing.
Any further questions? Okay. This time, we invite anyone from the public to speak on this petition. Hearing none. Does the petitioner have any final comments?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions from the board? Great, thank you. We will
Thank
take
you.
it to discussion amongst the board then.
Well, I think it's a nice-looking project. I think, to actually remodel a house and add the space that you need to in a sensitive way, in the neighborhood is commendable. I think the detailing is pretty consistent with the shingle style as much as you can, on a remodeling like this. I mean, you can't make it perfect, like, you know, you started from scratch. So I think with, you know, just the couple things that we had asked, you know, maybe, I don't know about the window trim size, if that could be beefed up or not, that's a possibility. Or, you know, maybe elaborating a little bit more on the side gables, just to give it a little bit more detail. Those side gables seem a little bare, but overall, I think it's overall a very nice look.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I know with the louvers and the trim, we're totally amenable to, you know, suggestions like that.
Sure. I didn't really have any other major comments.
Okay.
I can't remember who brought up shutters first, but I really like the brick that's on this building, on the first floor. It's got kind of the Chicago Common look to it. And I like the fact that it has these piers that project out. I mean, I think that's a nice, sets up a nice repetition and something that keys into the columns that you're introducing. I'm not convinced that putting shutters on this is right thing to do. Number one, you're covering up the nice brick, and I think it's crowding and almost hiding the fact that you've got a nice vertical pier in between the shutters. So I'd like to see the house, you know, it's hard to cover them up, they're there, but I don't, and since you're not using them on, anywhere on the rear, and again, only a couple of spots on the right side, and nowhere on the left, and when you are using them on the second floor on the front, it's for a double window that doesn't necessarily work with shutters. And I think you've got nice materials there. You've got the shingles, you've got a wonderful brick, and I think they're a distraction to the design. And I'm a little curious, I think the little square gable end vent that's used just once, I know it looks like we've discussed putting it elsewhere too, but I think that deserves a little bit more design consideration than just taking that element and sticking it here and sticking it there. I can't remember if it was the first petition that we saw tonight that had, it was on consent agenda, so that's why we didn't look at it, but it had an oval vent introduced about halfway between where that horizontal gable detail came in, and I think that would eliminate at least the crowding that I'm seeing as this thing just sticks on down to where it meets the little shed or pent roof that's in front of that gable, that pediment there. But I just think there's a little bit of something there that I'd like to see that you work on, and that could be at staff level, that's fine with me, but otherwise I think it's a wonderful improvement to the existing house. You know, to Monica's point, if we do take the shutters off, is there something more than just the brick mold on the windows, and do we use that consistently? And also the dormers that have shingle siding on a shingled roof, and I realize that they're two different shingle materials, so they will stand out, but I wonder if those were trimmed out. I mean, you've got the nice pediment gable to those. If those had a pilaster trim element to them, if they wouldn't stand out a little bit more. And I wonder too, is this house deserving of a cupola at the intersection of the cross-cut gables that are occurring there? You probably considered it, but either that, and that really sets up the hierarchy of that connection. I think you should entertain a nice cupola there.
Where it became problematic was on the back.
Not necessarily. Oh,
Because you're looking at the family room roof there. So the
Oh, so that just sort of comes down happenstance in the back?
yeah, and interferes with the...
I think it's one of those things where if it plays an important role to your composition on the front, and it's not offensive if anybody happens to see the side, I don't think that happenstance would be a reason not to do it on the back. Either that, and, you know, I don't mean to be throwing what ifs at you, but above the double window on the front, if you can click back into that, if there shouldn't be an element on the roof there that just really identifies that line of symmetry that occurs off to the right-hand side of that entry gable. Something on the roof, maybe a small shed dormer or a small window, or something up there.
We did look at that, too.
But I'm not suggesting any of these need to be important in the approval today, but I think they're important for you to consider.
Okay.
On the landscape plan, or the site plan, I guess I wondered why you've got this flagstone, stepping stone path that occurs on the right-hand side that just kind of goes off into nowhere, and I guess I wondered why that didn't make a turn and connect to that front porch right there, and allow you an opportunity to circulate without stepping off onto the,
Oh, yeah, that's just that's an existing element. It basically starts at the grass line and takes you,
yeah,
takes you through.
and I think I saw it again on the landscape design also, and it just didn't, I don't know, it looked like it ended at a place where maybe it shouldn't, and then I saw 2 air conditioning units out there on your landscape plan, or I didn't see them on the landscape plan, but they exist on your site plan.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see those, shown and,
The,
landscape properly on the landscape plan.
yeah, the site plan that I drew is probably a little more accurate in terms of the...
Right there. So there's
how
2
that- how
AC
that works.
units, and they weren't addressed on the landscape design. They probably should be. And that's,
I mean, that's all existing landscaping to remain on that side of the house, so,
okay. Nice job.
thanks.
I think it's a nice design, fits in well with the neighborhood, the streetscape, it really looks nice, and I actually like the shutters on the house, and I would personally keep them. A lot of John's ideas, I think, are good. I don't think they're necessary, though, in the design elements, just something to ponder, but I'm very supportive of this project. I think it's a nice addition.
I'm supportive of the project. And I have a mansard roof house, and I'd love to get rid of it.
You know who to call now.
I think we've heard that before.
Anyway, I like it.
Okay, I'm hearing general support with maybe putting in some considerations in our conditions to have the petitioner consider louvers and trim and possible removal of shutters and considering a different facing on the dormers. Does that summarize it? Okay. Based on that, could someone care to make a motion regarding this petition?
I move we approve the design, the massing, the roof forms, details contingent on what you just voiced, and also contingent on a setback variance by the Zoning Board of Appeals, along with staff's normal boilerplate recommendations for everything else.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion is carried. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Hearing none. Finally, is there any additional information from staff this evening? None. All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.